Thank you so much, and good morning or afternoon, everybody. It's evening for me, but thank you for joining. Do you want me to just go ahead and begin speaking? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you so I can share some pictures with you, because I think that's probably a good way to talk to you. So I'm going to speak to you about mindset, because for me, most of the things I've done in life have been about mindset, as well as incredible friends who've helped me do them. So this is a kind of thing I used to do before I was paralyzed. As you saw from the video there, I had a rock climbing accident and woke up to a whole new world. And I began this journey to see how I could have new adventures and do things differently. In the beginning, that was kind of challenging. I had to really change the way I was seeing my new situation of being paralyzed and paralyzed from the chest down. And so having this lust for adventure, it was suddenly quite difficult. So I've realized that in life, we need to take a lot of responsibility for our self-leadership. And that really helps us do more surprising things in life, I think. So it was an incredible surprise to me to win a gold medal in the Rio Paralympics in 2016. And I want to kind of talk you through that process a little bit of some of the top tips I've got about mindset that have really helped me on my journey over the years being paralyzed. So there's a video that was made by Adidas, who sponsored me for a number of years around the Rio Paralympics. And they finished the video saying that it's all about confidence. And I actually disagree, because I've never been an especially confident person. And it makes you question, what is confidence? Like, where does it really come from? And most of us don't feel super confident about our ability to succeed or do anything in life. So to me, it's all about resilience and determination and mindset. So for me, it's really important to have, you might have come across the expression, having a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. So asking yourself questions like, how can I improve? What can I learn from this? How can I do things differently? Instead of just thinking things like, I'm no good, I'll never do it, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, etc. So I try and basically train my brain to think in ways that are more kind of growth mindset instead of fixed mindset. And I do believe that life for most of us is a roller coaster. We all have challenges. So my challenge of being paralyzed is clearly quite a physical challenge. When people see me sat in a wheelchair, they know straight away that I've had something happen in my life that's led to my physical situation. But for many of us, the challenges that we have are invisible to other people. People won't know about the emotional highs and lows or some of the things that we've all faced in life. But I think the key is to embracing the moments when we're in good places in life and are really appreciating it. And then when we're in the lower places, to be asking questions like, what can we learn from this, instead of thinking, poor me. So I've invented a saying, and it's called having a whibber. And one of the things that's always really helped me is knowing where I'm going. And what I mean by that is having a kind of dream or a goal. And I call it having a wouldn't it be amazing. So that's what WIBA stands for. Wouldn't it be amazing? So I have kind of, they're like little dreams, things that I really wish I could achieve or really aspire to aim towards. And I think it's really important when we're doing that, when we're working towards a goal, a wouldn't it be amazing thing, that we know what it is. What is it that we really want to create in our life? Usually things don't happen to us by accident. They happen when we try and create them and we have that intention. It's really important that we feel inspired towards that goal. Like, why do we want it? What is it about it that gets us excited? If we have that motivation and that inspiration to work every day towards something, because most things do take hard everyday work, then we're much more likely to succeed than if it's something we don't really have that inner connection to. We have to some degree, believe that it's possible, even if sometimes my whippers have been very far-fetched. I kind of think, can I really do that? Like, can I really win a gold medal in a Paralympic Games? But on some level, we have to try and build up our self-belief that somehow it might be possible with the right team, with the right people, with the right effort. And we have to decide what kind of action we're going to take. How are we going to show up every day? How are we going to create this every day when things get hard and we maybe rather wouldn't do it? So I'm going to share with you some top tips on how I've kind of gone through this process of creating wouldn't it be amazing dreams and then trying to make them come true. So for example, in 2008, I saw the Beijing Paralympics on television and I thought, wow, my whibber was, wouldn't it be amazing to go to a Paralympic Games? I knew that the next Paralympics was in London, but I'd never ever been an athlete. So I started this whibber, and I called it the Olympic experiment. The reason it was an experiment was because when you call something an experiment, you never really know if it's possible. It's just like there's no right or wrong within an experiment. You're just testing it out and seeing what might be possible. So that kind of felt like a less threatening thing to do instead of putting pressure on myself that I had to succeed. I really found this helpful. It's a technique I've come across called CATS and ANTS. So CATS stands for capability affirming thoughts, and ANT stands for automatic negative thoughts. So let me give you an example. Aiming for the Paralympics, I had a couple of really good CATs. I thought to myself, I'll train hard, I'll try hard, and I ride my bike every day. But then after that, I had a lot of kind of negative thoughts about how on earth I could make this possible. And those automatic negative thoughts kind of drowned out any of the positive thoughts that I might have had. So automatic negative thoughts are a little bit like ants in real life. They can come into your head and kind of eat up any positivity that you had and make you feel like I can't do it, and you can be a bit overwhelmed by them. So what I find really helpful, instead of ignoring my negative thoughts, is to write them down. So I call it the power of negative thinking. Instead of ignoring it, write them down and work through all of those negative thoughts and think, what is one thing I could do about each of them that might help me feel more confident to go forward? So instead of ignoring them, it's like addressing them and thinking of little solutions to each one. So I can give you some examples if we get into a discussion later, but that gives you a bit of an idea of what I mean by that. And it's super powerful. So I believe that we also all have belief systems which can really, really limit us. So beliefs that we're not capable, beliefs that we're not strong enough, beliefs that we're not good enough, beliefs that we just, can't do things. And they might come from experiences in our life, or they might come from, something we've got from our family, from our ancestors, some kind of way that we limit ourselves. And for me, it's really important to try and overcome those. So this is me in 2008, climbing a huge mountain in America called El Capitan. It's 1 kilometer high. And because I had a rock climbing accident, I realized I was really, really scared of heights. So when I got up there, I was crying, I was petrified. And I had this kind of conversation with myself. When I saw this cliff, I really, really doubted that I could do it. I was really scared. And part of me just wanted to run away. But then part of me thought, if I go there, it'll give me the opportunity to try and face my fears, do things differently, perhaps rewrite history a little bit in my own history, and be able to go back to a climbing environment and face my fears and achieve something by overcoming some of the beliefs that I've got that are perhaps limiting me in life, some fears that I had. So I did go back there and with a few friends climbed this cliff. I was scared. I think you can see in my face here that I've got a mixture of curiosity and excitement, but also a huge amount of fear. But sometimes I believe that fear, I love the expression for fear, that it can be false expectations appearing real. Sometimes fear exists for a really good reason, to keep us safe. And sometimes it exists because actually we're just creating anxiety about what might go wrong, or about how we might fail, or about how we might look stupid. And that doesn't really help. So in our conscious mind, we have all the kind of thoughts that we notice going on in our minds, the positive thoughts, perhaps some negative thoughts. We have ideas and we can plan and try and create things. But underneath all of that, in our subconscious mind, there are lots of habits that drive us, lots of unconscious reactions and thoughts and ideas which perhaps aren't really based on reality. They're based on something that can potentially hold us back. So I think it's really, really helpful to notice some of the things that might be driving us, some of those fears that aren't really real. They just create anxiety for us, and to try and find ways to overcome them. So that's what I did on that cliff face. And finally, after a lot of tears and some anxiety, I did face those fears, and I managed to have an incredible time on the rock face trying to climb it. And we did finally succeed. We did have some failure along the way, but we did succeed as well. And I'm so kind of happy and I guess a little bit proud that I managed to overcome the fears that I had there and actually managed to climb that rock face. So what I realized there is that our mind is very, very malleable. We have the ability, it's like neuroplasticity. We can choose to put whatever film we want into our mind instead of allowing the film that's running to control us and stop us from doing things that we want to. So I love this expression by Albert Einstein that we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that we use to create them. So I think it's really important to notice what we're thinking, to notice the stories that we're telling ourselves and the things that we are kind of reinforcing by repeating the same thoughts and stories, and to find new ways to reprogram our minds, if you like, and have new messages and new ways of thinking. So our thinking mind is basically designed to help us survive. So, you know, like if we're living in the wilderness and we're trying to find food and fight lions and survive, we're wired to survive. And that means that as soon as we see a threat, we're quite focused on overthinking things, thinking about how we're weak, thinking negative things, thinking unhelpful things, letting those limiting beliefs control us. And the way that we can overcome that survival mode in this world, which is sometimes important, I keep stressing that, but many, many times it's really not helpful, then we have to start to change these patterns of thinking that we might have. I love this expression that many people say, but where our attention goes, our energy flows. So it's really important to notice where we're putting our attention and what we're telling ourselves and what we're believing in, and to notice what programs of thinking and feeling or behavior we might be running so that we can decide if we're willing to change them. So I believe that we can either choose to be this happy person, or we can stick with being maybe one of these sad people, and we can easily change that by changing the stories that we tell ourselves, because most of the stuff we have going on in our minds is just a story, and so we can change that story. And I'm going to share with you something really amazing that I discovered about the mind, which kind of reinforces why this is possible. And if we tell ourselves the right kind of stories, then every cell in our body can start to feel like this. We can start to feel much, much happier deep inside of ourselves. And we can also have this effect on the people around us and really change the lives of people around us. And that's true self-leadership and leadership of others, is to encourage that positivity and that sense of possibility in ourselves and in other people. When we feel resistance inside ourselves, I think that's a wonderful thing. So basically, I like to use the analogy of going to the gym. Weightlifters go to the gym to make their muscles stronger by pushing against resistance. So when we feel resistance in ourselves to doing something new, getting out of our comfort zone, instead of running away from it and avoiding it, we should try and address that resistance and actually work through it and maybe do something that we're a little bit afraid of. And that resistance is a way that we can grow our mental muscle stronger, not our physical muscles like a weightlifter would, but our mental muscle, so that we can become more resilient and more able to create the kinds of things we want to create in life. I don't know if you've ever come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but Maslow was a psychologist who said that most people we all operate as human beings depending on what our needs are. At the basic level of our needs are physiological needs. So we need food, we need water, we need warmth, we need safety, we need, shelter. On top of that, we need to feel that we belong somewhere, that we have love, we have people that we can care for and people that care for us. And that makes us feel better about ourselves. That helps us meet our self-esteem needs because we feel like we're supporting people and achieving something. And only when all of those needs are met are we able to really focus on being our true selves, giving our full potential and enabling ourselves to be and deliver the best that we can in the world and to other people. So it's really important to be aware of where you are. Sometimes we move between these levels all the time. Sometimes we just need to go back to looking after ourselves and our basic needs, and that's okay. And then there'll be other times when all of those basic needs are met and we're really able to start to operate at a different level really operating at our full potential and helping other people and supporting some fundamental change in the world to help the world be a better place. And we move between these all of the time. So whenever things have gone wrong in my life and been a little bit challenging, instead of letting the clouds of life get me down, I like to ask these questions. What can I learn from this? How can I make the most of this situation? And how might this help me or other people in the future? And those are kind of my golden rules and questions to ask myself when life gets a little bit tough. And I really believe that the best way to predict the future is to create it for ourselves and for the people around us. We can be a victim of life and let ourselves feel like life is controlling us, or we can really try to change that and step up and let ourselves create life and create what we want from it. So one of the ways that I do that is to, when I'm struggling in the current moment, if I'm struggling with motivation, if I'm kind of maybe finding it challenging not to go and eat all the extra chocolate that I'd like to eat, not do the training session that I maybe don't feel like doing, but I know it might get me to a Paralympic Games, then I have a conversation with my future self. So my current self might not want to do it, but I know that my future self will thank me for doing it. So sometimes I have to just stop and go, what would my future self thank me for in this situation? And then to try and change the way I'm behaving to please my future self instead of just doing what my current self wants. Because often our current self can just be a little bit lazy and want the easy way out. So that's a top tip that helps me anyway. I don't know if you've ever come across the concept of neurolinguistic programming, but what this says, basically neurolinguistic programming looked at some of the most successful people in the world and tried to look at what they were doing, what the habits were of those people and how other people might be able to create that success. It's maybe this picture's a little bit complicated, but what neurolinguistic programming says is that we filter our experience through our senses. So we might all have the same external experience, but we filter it differently based on the experiences that we've had in life. And that means that our interpretation of what exists out there is different for each of us. But the good news is that each of us interprets things differently, but that means that each of us can change the way we interpret things. So if you don't like the life that you're seeing outside of you, you have the ability to change how you're interpreting it. You can change your filter. You can delete things, distort things, change things to a better way that you like, which is amazing news. So basically you can change your story, the story that you're telling yourself. So when I first started trying to be a Paralympic athlete, I had a story, and my story was, I'm not strong enough. I am not an athlete. I just go out cycling for fun. I'm never going to manage to get to a Paralympic Games. And I realized that that was my story, but it wasn't really the truth. And I had to really work on my story and change it and make it into something that was much more, that created more possibility for me. I started to tell myself, hey, I train really hard. I do go out every day. I am committed. I am determined. I could be an athlete. I am an athlete. Those kind of stories instead. And it was changing that story that enabled me to finally be selected to compete for Britain in the London 2012 Paralympic Games. It was so amazing to be there as an athlete. And I also had a story that told me that, and it was an understandable story, because before I'd ever been to this Paralympic Games in London, I'd only ever done 2 races and I'd come last in both of them. So when the evidence tells us that we're really bad at something because we come in last and we're trying to go to a Paralympic Games, it's quite hard to convince ourselves that actually I could get there. So we have to work really hard on changing that story, even though underneath we might not really believe it. But when I did finally win a race in 2012, I think it was in April 2012, I started to believe that maybe I am actually an athlete and maybe I could get to this Paralympic Games. And what unbelievably happened is I got there, and not only did I compete, but it shocked me that I managed to win a silver medal. I was so overwhelmed that I won this medal, and it really motivated me to go, hey, maybe I could carry on and be an athlete. Maybe I could actually have another 4 years doing something that I love and get to another Paralympic Games. Now, this was a poster that was made for the London 2012 Paralympics, and I absolutely love these 4 words. It's like, for me, they are my guiding principles. They're wonderful values to lead life by. So we all need to have courage to do something differently, to step out of our comfort zone and try something that maybe we wouldn't normally dare to try. It doesn't matter if we look stupid. It doesn't matter if we fail. What matters is that we try and we learn something from it. We're all human, so we all need inspiration. I think inspiration is a bit like putting petrol in a vehicle. We need fuel to get us through life, and we're humans, so we sometimes run out of it. So look for that inspiration, because it is all around us. There are people all around us who inspire us. Every day I'm inspired by somebody, and it's usually not by the people that are doing kind of what you might call incredible things. For me, it's often the people who are just putting in daily determination and commitment to a cause, to their family, to something greater than themselves, and that really inspires me. We all need to work hard, so I literally need to sweat a lot to get to a Paralympic Games, but we do need to try hard to make a difference. And more than anything, we need to love each other. We are all different. We all have different strengths, and it's really easy to judge people and to think that people, just to think about people in not a very helpful way, but also ourselves. We are our own hardest judge, and sometimes it's really easy to tell ourselves things that we'd never say to a friend or even a stranger. We can tell ourselves that we're useless at something, that we're not good enough, that we always get things wrong, and we need to love ourselves and give ourselves positive messages. So after 2012, I realized that British sport, UK sport, were using me on a poster. They didn't ask me this. I just found myself looking at myself on a poster saying, have you got what it takes to go to Rio? So I kind of found myself asking myself, looking at myself, asking myself, have you got what it takes? And I really didn't know, but I know that I'm passionate about what I do and I love to ride a bike. So I thought, I'm going to try. And what I want to do is to try harder than ever before and see that if I could learn what it takes to get really, really good at something, possibly to win a gold medal. So I started training harder than ever, and I started looking at all the ways that I could get to be a tiny, tiny bit better at each of the things that I did. And I thought that if I can get to be a bit better at 10 different things, I can get to be a lot better overall at this one thing that I'm doing. So I adopted this strategy. If you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. And I decided to believe that I could potentially try and win a gold medal at the Rio Paralympics. Then I discovered this part of the brain that we have, and it's called the reticular activating system. It's a tiny bit of the brain in the back of the brainstem, which is where we filter, it's where our sensors filter all of the information that comes into our bodies. And this is a really amazing and powerful bit of information that I'm going to give you just now. So what this part of our brain does is it takes in, sorry about all the words on this, it just helps explain it a bit. It takes in all of the information that's bombarding our sensory systems. And then because it can only take in so much of this information, because there's too much information coming in, it only takes in the information that it thinks is important. And how it decides what is important is by looking at what we're focusing on. So wherever we choose to focus our mind is what our brain decides to allow to let information in that's relevant to that focus. So if we're focused on failing, if we're focused on all the things that are wrong in our life, we will keep receiving more and more information that reinforces that message. If we're focused on possibility, if we're focused on believing that, in this case, that potentially I could win a gold medal, then I'm taking in information all the time that is reinforcing that message to help me believe that it's even more possible than I might otherwise think so. That changes the way we feel, that changes the way we behave, that behavior changes the way that it changes what we're creating in the world, and that changes our reality. So here is a secret about how I won a gold medal. It was nothing to do with me being the strongest athlete. I have only once or twice ever won a race in my life. But what I did was started to believe that I could. And so all of the information that I was programming my brain with enabled me to believe that I could. So before this race here, you can see these letters that I've drawn on my arm. It says DSP. DSP stood for dangerously strong and powerful. It's not that I felt dangerously strong and powerful, but I decided to just program my brain with that message so that I could go out and race and feel stronger. In that particular race, it was the World Championships 1 year before the Rio Paralympics. And you can see from the results here that I came fourth. Not only did I come fourth, but I was nearly 2.5 minutes down on the winner from Italy. So I could have told myself at this point, I'm useless. I didn't even make the podium. It's only 1 year to the Paralympic Games. 2.5 minutes is so much. I am never going to make it. But instead of doing that, here is what I decided to tell myself. Okay, I've got some work to do, but 2.5 minutes, it was 1 day, it was one race, and I can really change that. I decided to tell myself that those results were not because I was weak, but because I had control. I'm going to skip that slide because it's a bit difficult to explain, but that I had control to change my reality. So I just started telling people that I was going for gold in Rio. I just said, I really, really want to try and win a gold medal. I don't know if I can do it, but it meant that friends started buying me gifts and like, this is a giant biscuit, which in Spanish, it means go Karen, go for gold. So it was telling myself more and more of the information that I wanted to believe. I bought myself gold shoes. So I don't even like gold, but every time I looked at my feet, I was like, yes, go for gold. I bought myself a gold phone cover. I bought myself a gold laptop cover. I started talking about gold to everybody. And then I thought, if I'm going to win a race, I need the best bike in the world. So here's what I did. It seemed crazy, but I decided to contact Williams Formula One, a Formula One motor racing car company, to ask them if they would make me a bike. At first, they said no. We haven't got time. It's too close to the Paralympics. This is February, and I'm going to the Paralympics in July or August. And then a month later, they got back to me and they said, hey, we've had 4 engineers volunteer their time free of charge to see if we might be able to design something. A month after that, they got back to me and they said, now we've got 30 engineers because everyone's so excited about it. So I had this massive team of the world's most amazing engineers designing me a bike, which meant that a few months later, in July 2016, just a few weeks before leaving for the Rio Paralympics, they invited me to the factory and they unveiled this bike. It is the most incredible machine. Like, how on earth did this happen? It seems impossible to suddenly have someone create this bike. And then I was like, how am I going to pay for it? And Adidas just suddenly offered to pay for the bike for me. It was the most unbelievable story. I couldn't even believe it was happening. But it meant that I went to the Rio Paralympic Games feeling stronger than ever with this most incredible bike that the world has ever seen and feeling really, really good. And that is how I won a gold medal. Everything went wrong in the race. So the week before Rio, the week before my race, I injured my shoulder. I had to lie in a bed, basically in the medical center for a week, repairing my shoulder. But all through that week, I just kept believing, going, I've trained hard. I've done everything possible. Maybe this week actually is exactly what I need. It's giving me the rest that I need so I can really come through and race really strong. So I never once allowed that belief to falter. I just kept feeding myself positive information, and I did win that medal. And even in the race, my chain fell off. I had to stop, physically stop, pick the chain up, put it back on the bike. And I definitely lost about 20 or 30 seconds doing that, but somehow still managed to win the race. It's like a magical mystery to me how that actually still enabled me to win the race. But I believe that that part of our brain and the stories we tell ourselves are so, so important. So I want to stop talking in a minute, but just to summarize, my recommendation is that be really, really conscious of the stories that you tell yourself and the words, the actual words that you use. One word can change how you feel. I used to have really hard training sessions, well, I still do, and I used to call them my killer sessions. And one day, instead of calling them my killer sessions, I decided to call them my gold sessions. And it kind of just changed how I felt about it. Your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. So just remember the power of the videos and the stories that you're playing in your mind and that you have control to change them. Keep calm and watch what's going on. So kind of watch your mind. If you've ever come across the idea of mindfulness, that's all about watching your mind. And when the negative things start, instead of following them, use them to help you. Notice the negative thoughts, the power of negative thinking and change those thoughts and do things that help diminish those negative thoughts so that they actually become power for you to move forward more strongly. Be curious. Curiosity is always great. So when you're feeling sad, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling like everything's just so difficult, instead of just going, just go, this is interesting. I've never felt this way before. I wonder what will happen next, and just keep trying. So curiosity is super important. And when life gets tough, instead of bouncing backwards, I've often heard a lot of work about resilience talk about bouncing back, that we need to bounce back from the difficulties. I don't believe in bouncing back. I believe in bouncing forward. How can we use the difficult things in life to actually come back stronger than ever, to really learn something about ourselves and the people around us and the world, to bounce forward, to come back better than we've ever even imagined we could. So I'm going to stop there, but I want to tell you, if you're interested, I want to tell you about my next project. So in Rio, I won the 79th medal for my country. It was a gold medal, and I since realized that 79 is the atomic number of gold in the periodic table. You remember the chemistry periodic table of life? So gold is number 79. And I decided that I wanted to start a project that was all about helping people find their inner gold. So what I mean by inner gold is that kind of strength that we all have inside us. When I first became paralyzed, the night before I was paralyzed, I said to some friends, I cannot imagine anything worse than being paralyzed. I would rather be dead than paralyzed. That was my belief at that time. 12 hours later, I was paralyzed. And I do not believe for 1 minute that I'd rather be dead now. I'm much more happy to be here. But through that process, I found my inner gold. I found the strength inside me. I found the resilience. I found the belief to keep moving forward. I found strength inside that I never believed that I had. And I think it's really important for us to find those things. But I think often the only way we find them is to step out of our comfort zone. And it's much better to choose to step out of our comfort zone and to grow that way, instead of letting life knock us down and have to pick ourselves up from some circumstances that we maybe don't necessarily want. So I, since Rio, have been cycling 7 continents, 9 rides. I've cycled across each of the continents of the world, but I've got one journey left, and that journey is to cycle in Antarctica. And I've since found out that there's a place in Antarctica where 79 degrees latitude and longitude exists. So most people go to Antarctica to go to the South Pole, but I'm creating a project called the Pole of Possibility. And we're going to ski to this random place or cycle to this point in Antarctica, 79 degrees latitude and longitude, that I've called the Pole of Possibility. And I'm looking for people all over the world to help me do that. So if you like the idea of stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something different, and perhaps helping me raise money. So I'm raising money for a charity, £79,000 for the Spinal Injuries Association. And anyone who does that can have their name on the flag that I'm going to plant at the Pole of Possibility. So there's more information at the website here. And it's all about helping you find your inner gold, connecting with yourself and the people around you, and also the environment, creating that environment that you want in your life, that positive environment full of positivity and possibility, instead of it all about being difficult or hard or negative. Anyway, you can ask me more about that, and there's lots more on my website. This is my website. Please follow me on Instagram. I'm at handbikedark, or message me on Instagram or Twitter, or any way that you like. I'd be really happy to see you there. And I'm going to stop talking for now and give you a chance to ask some questions. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your story. I love how you always tell yourself stories to change your way of thinking. That's something I want to also gain from this session. We have questions from our students. So the first one will be from Grace from Truth One. She wanted to ask you something. Grace, if you could unmute your mic. Grace from Truth 5, sorry. Grace from Truth 5. Can you please?
Hi, Grace.
I think you also have to stop sharing so we could see the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Good.
Great.
Do we have Grace from Truth 5? If not, there's also Jo Kim from Grace 1.
Grace says she can't unmute, so maybe if you can't unmute yourselves, if you could perhaps ask questions in the chat box, that might be a good way to do it.
Grace, let's try one more time. The co-host is going to unmute you, and if you could click on the icon.
Okay, got it. Hello, Karen.
Hi, Grace.
Here. Hi. I wanted to ask, you had said that, we are able to reprogram our brains, and you had like these letters on your arm, strong and powerful. I was wondering if there's anything else in your life that you reprogram your brain for that worked out as well in another area of your life, maybe perhaps something besides the Paralympics. I was curious.
Yeah. So yeah, I do it all of the time. So for example, I guess, well, let's just go for my private life, like my relationship life. So I don't have, like, I'm not married and I don't have a long-term partner, and it's really, sometimes I can get into telling myself that maybe there's something wrong with me, or maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not attractive, or whatever it might be. And then I have to just go, hang on a minute, let's just reprogram that. So I think we all have areas of our life where we're more challenged. It might be in our career, it might be in our relationships, it might be in finances, it might be in our health, it might be in our fitness. Like, I'm really motivated to train, but other people aren't. So whatever area of our life that we perhaps find more challenging, or where we have maybe a negative commentary, I think it really helps us to check in with ourselves what that negative commentary is, and look at it differently. And sometimes we might need people to help us do that. Like, maybe we need to ask our friends, and maybe it takes more time than just one simple reprogramming. But we can do stuff all the time. So whether it's, sometimes I even put pictures on my phone that tell me different messages. I might find a message that I want to hear and find a photo that has that, and keep it as my screensaver, or write something that I see regularly every morning. The other thing I do a lot of is, before I fall asleep at night, I think about what I've really appreciated in the day, things I'm really grateful for. And that helps me fall asleep feeling like really happy for what I've had and the moments that I've had. And equally, when I wake up in the morning, I think about how I want my day to be, how I want to create it, and what I want to maybe make happen in that day, instead of just thinking, oh, it's another day and what's going to happen. And I try and take control of it in a way that's positive. So I hope that helps answer your question. But I think it's not something that we just suddenly become good at. I think we have to work at it all the time. So even though I'm telling you these things, I still have to work at it in different parts of my life constantly. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We don't have
Thanks.
much time, but we're going to do just one more student. We have Joe Kim from Grace W1. Joe, can you please unmute your mic and ask your question? Joe Kim.
Hi, Joe. Can you manage to unmute yourself?
The co-host will allow you to unmute, and you could just push on the mute icon.
All right. Hi, Karen. It was an honor to listen to your story. And so the question that I had was, you're talking about, ants and cats, right? Or the can and can't mindset. So you kind of transitioned and kind of reprogrammed your mind to kind of think of the cat and the can mindset. And many of us, personally me, I kind of struggle with, reprogramming my mindset to think of the can or the cat, because the ants are usually it's like a fight or flight response. And usually that's the first thought that I have. How would you fight these thoughts when, these kind of arises?
So I always think that awareness is the first step. As soon as you become, sometimes you have people, I can remember times in my life when I've had so many negative thoughts that I don't even have the awareness of how I'm allowing them to keep coming and to keep controlling me. So I think awareness is the first step. And with that, like, even just being here today and learning about this, you are going to have a different level of awareness. So whenever you start to get the ants, the automatic negative thoughts coming, you will have another level of awareness where you can go, oh, actually, that's just, I'm allowing all of those thoughts to keep coming. And you can stop yourself and go, okay, what else could I tell myself that might replace them? Or how can I use all of those negative thoughts to really help me address this challenge and do it differently? Like, more safely, or to learn a new skill, or whatever it might be that you need to do to overcome those negative thoughts. So I don't know, does that help answer your question? Yeah, I think the awareness is the first bit, and then it's just working at it. And you might find different ways to do it, like a pen and paper really helps me sometimes, or sometimes when we actually write physically, it's easier than just doing it on a computer screen. You can find ways that work for you that help you change those negative thoughts, I think.
Thank you so much. That's actually all the time we have for now. So I wanted to say thank you, Karen, so much for sharing your story, knowledge, and heart with us. It has definitely inspired all of us here that challenges are great, you know, ability is a state of mind, and that anything is possible. So before you go, we want to keep this experience as a memory. We want to capture it with a group photo. So at this time, can all the audience members smile at the camera and, you know, give your happy thank you pose for 5 seconds, and we're going to take a picture. So everyone smile, and I'll count for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you so much. Great. So now our students.
Thank you so much to everybody for coming, and I really wish you all the very best with your lives and your journeys and your WIBBers, your Wouldn't It Be Amazings, and just, yeah, get in touch anytime you like via Instagram or wherever, and just, I hope that you have amazing lives.
Thank you so much, and we'll definitely look at your website. You guys could check her out more on her website and on her Instagrams. Our students are going to right now take a 10-minute break and at 11:05 attend the morning conference. But everyone at this time, please unmute your mic and say thank you and bye to Karen. Everyone, you could unmute your mic and say thank you and bye to Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.